Hey, this is Ryan Steele, and you're listening to the Give and Go podcast.
Welcome back to the Give and Go basketball podcast. We have a lot happening in the world of basketball. The Olympic qualifiers are going on. The NBA draft is starting to pick up. I believe we're filming this on the July the 5th. July 7th, I think, is the last day to back out of the draft for those who are going to be returning to college. So a lot happening there. And then I think the biggest thing that's going on in the world of basketball right now is we have the NBA finals set with the Phoenix Suns and Milwaukee Bucks. Chris Paul finally makes it after, I think, 16 years in the NBA. He finally makes it to an NBA's final. So a lot happening. But let's jump right into the conference finals that we had. So there's some couple good series there. Let's start on the East with the Bucks and the Hawks. Started out real hot series, and then the injuries to Trae Young and Giannis, and it got real interesting there. And I didn't even mention the fact that we have a weird turn of things. I got Ben Sperry here with me live and in person, and it's actually Ryan coming to us from the land of the Zoom. So, but all right, back to it. Trae Young, Giannis go down, get hurt, have to play a couple games with that. And actually in Game 6, Trae Young made a comeback, but I think you could just tell that he was not 100%. I think he shot somewhere in the 20% from the field. But give us your thoughts. I'm going to go to Ben because he's sitting right next to me. Give us your thoughts, Ben, on that Eastern Conference final breakdown and the injuries that kind of.
Yeah, I mean,
dominated the storylines, I guess you could say.
This playoffs has been rough with injuries, and Trae Young, his injury, I thought perhaps even hurt the Hawks more than Giannis' injury hurt the Bucks, which may or may not be surprising depending on how you look at it. I mean, Giannis is two-time MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, one of the best players in the world, so you would think that his injury might really mess the Bucks up, as it did when he first got hurt. I believe it was in Game 4, and the Hawks put it on him even without Trae Young out there. But I think over time it became apparent that without Trae Young's abilities to make huge shots and create for everybody, the Hawks, even with their depth, weren't quite as deep as the Bucks. That's kind of how I felt about it watching it. Mm-hmm. But I also had this other thought, and maybe we can think about this too. If those injuries happened, say earlier in the playoffs, or looking at it differently, how many teams from the East would be favored over either the Hawks or the Bucks with the teams that were thrown out there for games 5 and 6? And I think it'd be quite a few, right? It would be at least the teams they face in the semifinals. But would either team get out of the first round without those guys? I don't know.
Steele, your thoughts?
I mean, I think definitely Philly in Brooklyn would clearly be favored to beat them, even with, let's say, just Durant out there, because they almost knocked them off. Basically a fully healthy Bucks team without Dante DiVincenzo. But I think the Bucks showed they have more ways to beat you than we thought, and more ways to beat you than some of these teams from the East do. So usually they do it with Giannis caving in your defense, spot up shooting from Middleton. Drew Holiday's been kind of silent for most of the playoffs. Giannis goes down. They win a game by basically turning back the clock on Brook Lopez, and Bobby Porter's had a big game too, but they do it a lot on the inside. Brook Lopez dominated his matchup. And then the next game, I thought they got away from that a little too much. They didn't look inside as much. But Drew Holiday, to his credit, man, had a huge game. And now they show that Drew Holiday, when he gets in a rhythm, can carry you, him and Middleton. So they just had more at their disposal to beat the Hawks. I think the Trae Young injury was so unfortunate because it was such a fluky, fluky injury that he's just backpedaling on defense and steps on a referee's foot. Like, if he doesn't, who's to say they don't make it to the finals right now?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the Hawks, today Nate McMillan signs a 4-year contract and loses the title of interim. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think it's pretty obvious, but your thoughts on
I guess one of my biggest annoyances with professional sports in America is the recycling of coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of giving some upstart a chance, like an Eric Spoelstra got in Miami, or guys get sometimes, you have the recycling of Stan Van Gundy's and Nate McMillan's, and there's just tons of coaches that they weren't the answer at this organization, they weren't the answer at this one. Now they're going to be the answer at this one. So I think Nate McMillan's a good coach. I think he rode a wave with a good Hawks team that was better than people thought. But he did a good job. So, he's definitely deserved the chance to get that extension and be the head coach there. But I think coaching to a certain extent is it's overstated in professional sports sometimes, in my opinion.
So I would actually go a slightly different way with it. And I would say, good for Nate McMillan. I think it's well-deserved, because I don't think success happens by accident, especially when it's as big of a turnaround as they had this season. However, the thing that gets coaches fired more than anything else in professional sports is raising expectations because you overachieve,
Mm-hmm.
and then coming back to earth, maybe through no fault of your own, and then getting fired. I can think of several examples of this, but one that I still remember from quite a few years ago now, but Avery Johnson got coach of the month one year with the Nets because they way outperformed expectations, and was fired literally the following month because they went back to where they really were thought to be the whole time, or before the season started. And there's a possibility Atlanta, because they were way ahead of schedule, may regress a little bit next year.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's going to be the guy that gets blamed for it, is what I could actually foresee happening.
Right. It's all based on expectation. Yeah. So I guess, does the organization go by what the media thinks the expectation should be in fan base, or do they have a tempered expectation of, we're a good team, but it's a tough Eastern Conference? I put it like this.
Mm-hmm.
Would it surprise either of you if next year they lost in the first round to Miami, Boston, Philly, Brooklyn, Milwaukee? Like, don't you think any of those teams in the right matchup could knock Atlanta off?
Yes.
Yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me at all.
And not only that, like, say they get past the first round, like, you're most likely going to run into a team that's going to be favored against you, just like they were this year, right?
Right.
And if they're healthy,
right,
they might not only beat you, but beat you badly, right? So
now I think the case for the Hawks right now is 3-4 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
If they keep that core together, Trey, Collins, DeAndre Hunter, Capella, Bogdan, they keep that core together. They'll lose some guys. They'll lose a Lou Williams here. They'll lose a couple shooters here. But if you keep that core together, while Durant starts getting out of his prime and Harden leaves his prime, and Jimmy Butler leave, a lot of guys are going to be leaving their prime soon, that East. So I think their thing is hold on to this core right now, because I've been saying the whole playoffs. Yeah. This was cake for them, man. Like the fact they made it this far. They're the big winner right now. All the teams that have lost in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Well, we were just talking before we started recording too, is that coming back next year, Trae Young is 22 years old. John Collins is 23, I think. I could be wrong on these, but Cam Reddish is 21. DeAndre Hunter's 22. Kevin Huerter's 21 or 22. A lot of young talent on that team that's going to continue to still be young next year. So and he's McMillan's returning all those core guys. So who's not to say that they don't have a little sophomore slump next year, but like you said, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody knocked them out. But then again, they could keep
getting better.
They could just keep improving. especially if Trae Young continues to propel himself into superstar status. So, any final thoughts on the Eastern Conference Finals, Bucks Hawks?
No.
All right, let's go ahead and move to the West then. Phoenix and Clippers. I think you can say, and I think you can go back in the history of the NBA and put a check mark next to each year and say that an injury caused one team to lose, compared to the other. So I don't want to go blaming it on an injury, but if Kawhi Leonard is healthy, Clippers take that series. Is that fair enough to say, or no?
I mean, you would like their chances.
Yeah. It might be favored in a way.
Yeah, it might be favored more than what it was. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Correct.
Clippers stepped up. You had some big games from, Paul George and company, but
Yeah.
I think Kawhi Leonard makes a big difference. So let's get your guys' thoughts on the Suns and Clippers Western Conference Finals.
I mean, first and foremost, I think Paul George deserves a huge, shout out, because people last year wrote him off. He had a great regular season, great playoffs, did it when it counted with Kawhi out, carried him to the end of that series to get to the conference finals. And then, did he have a couple okay to below average shooting games in the conference finals? Sure, but he was carrying the load for them. And he's out there with Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, Zubac. Like, it's not a great team that he had around him. So I give him a lot of credit, and I give Ty Lue a lot of credit too.
Yeah.
A year ago, you watched them fall apart with a guy who has more cachet in the league, Doc Rivers. And every time it looked like they seemed to be out of a series or out of a game, they came storming back. So a lot of credit to those two. And on the Suns side, man, like, they got it done. Like, you missed Chris Paul the first couple games. You were without Cam Johnson the last game. Like, you had your own injuries to deal with, your own stuff going on, and you still found a way to get it done. So I thought that was a great series all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, the Clippers made it highly competitive, and to the point that you weren't even sure if the Suns for sure were going to close them out. You just didn't know, right?
Right.
And then, I really enjoyed the closeout game because Chris Paul, and we talked about this last week, I mean, the whole legacy thing and, like, how can you change the narrative about your legacy? Chris Paul seemingly, like, took that on his back and, like, went for it, right? Like, he had one of his most massive playoff performances ever, scoring 41 points, hitting so many dagger shots over and over again just to make sure there was no possible run. Because, you keep building the lead back up over 20, eventually he breaks their will. He clearly broke Patrick Beverley's will, and he lost his mind and shoved him and got thrown out of the game. So,
right.
I think Chris Paul played about as good of a game and got to have a really cool moment to close out that series in LA in front of his former fans.
Absolutely.
Fans.
I love his
really
post-game speech too. Gave a lot of love to the Clippers and
I really enjoyed how he did all of that. As a Chris Paul fan. Now, one thing that I will say though is the Chris Paul haters are those that just want to find fault. They'll say, and this is true to some extent, that the Suns in every round faced a depleted version of the team that they played.
Mm-hmm.
Facts.
Yeah.
But so did the Warriors multiple years when they won a championship. So did
true.
A lot of teams. I mean, it's not
including in their first one, right? 2016
Right.
Warriors.
a lot of teams did.
Arguably played the depleted version in every round as well. So yes, that's true. But I think that's where the next argument will go for those that want to find a reason that this doesn't, validate what he's done. But we'll see. I think it'll be an interesting finals.
Injuries are part of the game.
Yeah.
I love how you guys I loved his post-game interview. He gave a lot of shout outs to the Clippers fans and the Clippers organization. Yeah, as he drug his ass and showed his ass all over the court, was taunting the fans, taunting the bench, cussing people out. Like, the true asshole Chris Paul came out to play that game. Like, it was Beverly being just the little punk he can be, shoving people in their back.
I was gonna say
Try
that.
out. Go ahead.
In Chris Paul's defense, though, he did get shoved pretty hard right in the back.
Oh, no.
Seeing it from Pat Beverly.
Dude, without a doubt, if you're Pat Bev, you want to talk your talk all series. That's cool. You want to get in people's face and jaw. That's cool. They ignored you, bro. Somebody walks by you one time and gives you a glare and you want to shove somebody? Nah, that's not cool, man. You're a punk for that. But Chris Paul, man, let's not act like this was some classy performance, man. He was dribbling the ball up, cussing the bench out, getting teed up with like a minute left. I mean, come on now.
So Chris Paul is one of these dichotomy guys. And I've always kind of liked it, even though it's probably not the perfect way to play the game of basketball or life. But he is super classy whenever he's not playing basketball, and he plays basketball like an absolute competitive dog, right? And I've always enjoyed that. Maybe because I'm kind of like that. I don't know. I think it's okay to be competitive and be crazy on the court as long as you're actually, a sports.
Here's my thing. I'm consistent. I have no issue with it. Yeah. I love the asshole. I love the taunter. I love the dude who does celebrations. I love all that. But if you're the person who doesn't like LeBron, calls him a flopper, says he whines to, well, then let's not hold Chris Paul up as some classy, shining example for the end. Right. The dude flops just as much, whines just as much, cries to the officials, taunts the other team. I mean, that's Chris Paul. Like, I'm cool with it, but I think everybody should take a look at themselves if they want to, throw shade at somebody and then be cool with it in other, stands. Like, I just be cool with it all the way or hate on it every time. I don't know.
We don't have to spend a lot of time with this, but speaking of which, I saw this the other day and it kind of made me raise an eyebrow, but I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on it. Pat Beverly next season will have to serve a 1-game suspension for the shove on Chris Paul. Do you guys think 1 game is enough? I mean, that's kind of like all right, buddy, here's a rest day for you. We'll see you on Tuesday.
You should have to miss a playoff game.
Yeah.
I mean, it was super corny what he did, but I'm a little old school in the fact that we don't need to be missing that many games for a shove. People get fouled harder. It was dirty for sure. He could at least shoved him in his chest in the front. You didn't have to wait till he turned his back.
Yeah,
that's what I had the most issue with. If you would have turned as he's walking by and shoved him in his chest, okay, he could see it coming. Don't shove some man in his back like that. Yeah. That's coward.
Yeah. I thought 1 week would be better. Miss multiple games,
or just fine him.
Yeah, or just fine him. But yeah, either way. Yeah. So before we go to break, though, let's talk a little bit about the Olympic qualifiers because I think there were some interesting things that happened. Luka is still being Luka and dominating. A very talented Canadian basketball team goes down and loses and actually won't be competing in the Olympics when you have guys like RJ Barrett, Andrew Wiggins,
Kelly Olynyk.
God Anthony Bennett.
I was going to say the former number 1 draft pick Anthony Bennett. It was just a real shocker to me. I mean, don't get me wrong. You're still going up against, the world's best. But I just thought that team was pretty talented to not even make it into the Olympics. So just quick thoughts on some of the Olympic qualifiers that we had, some things you're seeing. I know Ben said he was following it.
Yeah. I mean, another team that has as much talent as anybody, outside of the U.S., Serbia. Granted, they didn't have Jokic or Bogdanovic is still playing with the Hawks, but they still have a ton of NBA talent. And they got eliminated early getting an upset by Italy, who does not have really a lot of NBA players on their roster. So that was another one. But yeah, the big one that I've been following, at least the highlights of, is Luka and Slovenia. Almost a perfect situation in a way because of his particular skill set and the high level in which he can do it. He gets to be a ball dominant, make all the decisions for his team in Slovenia just as much as he does in Dallas. Be a 3-level scorer and get everybody else baskets, and it works. He has a few role guys, he has some shooters, and he does it all for them. And Slovenia looks like they're going to be a really tough out because they just look like an NBA team in a weird way. they have one superstar and then everybody else has a role. Versus, I think a lot of times like the U.S. And some of these other really talented international teams are throwing together a bunch of all-stars. No, there's such a clear pecking order in Slovenia. It looks like an actual like professional basketball team.
Right. No, I mean, like the U.S. sometimes it's like, okay, whose turn is it? Like, is it my turn to shoot this time? Like, if you, like you said, a clear pecking order. Although we saw with Jokic that should have been a clear pecking order, but it didn't quite, get the job done.
He was coming off the bench for Serbia last time.
And that's like the weirdest thing. So I think Slovenia, like you said, they're going to be a tough out, but it's one, once you get to the elimination stage, it's one subpar mediocre game from Luka and you're done. Mm-hmm. Where the U.S. and some of these other teams have so many, guys that could kill you on the court. And I guess I don't have too much to say yet about the Olympic qualifiers, other than we're just coming off July 4th, and I'm not like the most patriotic guy, but Team USA basketball brings out the biggest patriot in me by far. I will be going crazy over these games because I don't know.
I think it's going to be, and I mean the without these guys, the USA team is still loaded. But it's going to be interesting to see. The next couple games because Team USA is going to be without Chris Middleton, going to be without Drew Holiday, going to be without Devin Booker. You still have Dame Lillard, you still have Kevin Durant. Who else?
I think
Kevin
they'll
Love.
Survive.
Tatum. Tatum.
Don't forget Kevin Love.
Zion Williamson. Hey,
Kevin Love's on the team even though he hasn't done anything for 5 years in the NBA. Come on, man.
Hey. He's still Kevin.
I would have rather seen a rookie like how they used to do that, a college kid. You know what I'm saying? Like Anthony Davis was like.
Bring back Christian Laettner. Christian Laettner should play this year.
And
don't get twisted. I mess with Kevin Love. He's a dog. I like him off the court and on, but you ain't that, my guy. Come on now.
So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are going to preview the NBA Finals, and this will probably be the first topic of discussion right here because this just came on like right now as I'm talking about it. Just came up on my phone. Antetokounmpo is listed as doubtful for tomorrow night's Game 1 of the NBA Finals. So that's probably what we're going to lead off with after this quick break. This is the Give and Go Basketball Podcast. Ben Sperry sitting next to me. Ryan Steele coming from Zoomland. We'll be right back. Thanks for listening to the Give and Go Basketball Podcast. We are back with the Give and Go Basketball Podcast. Let's do a little breakdown of our NBA Finals preview. Right before we went to break, we had an update that Antetokounmpo is doubtful for tomorrow's Game 1. Doesn't necessarily mean that we won't see him, but if we do see him, probably going to be very limited minutes. Huge injury, but the Bucks still have a lot of high-level threats for scoring and guys that can put up 25, 30-plus points. So does it really make a huge difference? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, I think it does make a huge difference, but, it doesn't mean the Bucks won't be competitive or can't be competitive. I think, doing a preview, I think there's two different ways it can go. If Giannis does come back healthy relatively soon and can play at a high level, I think it makes a totally different matchup and maybe changes who's favored for a lot of people. But I think as it is, the Suns are favored because of that injury in mind. And also because they've earned it. I mean, the Suns have played really well throughout the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So the way I see it right now is I would probably favor the Suns going in. But I think it'll come down to matchups and figuring each other out because the Bucks were starting to figure out, it seemed like, how to guard Trae Young in the high pick and roll. Mm-hmm. And they're going to see a ton more of it with Booker and Paul. Of course, Trae Young getting hurt means we didn't really get to see if those adjustments they were starting to make were going to be effective long-term because traditionally the Bucks like to play a lot of drop coverage. The Clippers had the most success against Chris Paul and Booker both when they just were able to be switchable, play a lot of big wings that can stay in front and have length and just switch the pick and rolls. I think if you play drop coverage, that's a recipe for disaster against Chris Paul, one of the greatest mid-range shooters of all time, and then Devin Booker, who's also an elite scorer in the mid-range.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Bucks do have, the personnel to play that kind of defense that the Clippers do. I don't know if they will go. Budenholzer, to his credit, is a good NBA coach, but he's been unwilling to, switch strategies, mid-series. So they like to go big. They like to have Giannis out there, Brook Lopez out there, Bobby Portis out there. They like having big guys on the court where you could, even if you started Brook Lopez, and let's say Giannis does play and is healthy, you could have lineups out there where Giannis is hypothetically your center, which to me would be your best lineup. So you had PJ Tucker and other guys who can switch onto that coverage, like we're saying, instead of leaving Brook Lopez just to keep dropping and dropping and dropping. And now Chris Paul is, eating you alive. That's going to be important. Drew Holiday's matchup with Chris Paul is going to be very important. How he gets around these screens and how they play that, is going to be huge. The start of this, though, was Giannis. Is it crazy to say that they have a chance? It's weird because we've seen, 4 playoff games now in the last 2 years where the Bucks, for whatever reason, play well without Giannis. Now, they clearly aren't as good defensively, but I don't know if it's because Middleton gets in more of a rhythm. Guys get, different looks. They get maybe shots in the spots they like. With Giannis, everybody is pretty much turned into a standstill jump shooter. Because it's all reacting off of what he does, basically. And he also hurts your floor spacing because you can allow him to shoot and shoot and shoot, and you'll live with it. Now when you have 5 guys out there that can all shoot, it makes it, the coverage a little bit different on the defense. So I think the Bucks can play with them without Giannis, but they will need Giannis to win the series for sure.
Yeah.
And let's go this way. Let's say everybody is healthy. Everybody's healthy, like we live in a fantasy world. So Giannis is out playing, DiVincenzo's out playing. Everybody's playing. Who, pound for pound, who has the better roster overall, in your guys' opinion? Going into this, everybody's healthy. Everybody's 100%. Who's better, roster-wise?
Well, I think it'd be hard to find a good matchup for Giannis defensively on the Suns. I mean, Mikal Bridges has been one of their perimeter defenders, and he does a good job. He's got, length. He's a good athlete. But he's not as big as Giannis. I mean, so I think that'd be a tough matchup for him. You could try, and this is what a lot of teams do, just put Ayton on him and play off.
Well, I will say Jay Crowder did a pretty good job last year for the Heat.
That's true. He's a tough guy too. That's true. You could put Jay Crowder on him. That's true.
Bigger
just
body.
belly up with him. You force him to take jumpers, and as soon as he drives, everybody walls up and you attack him. You don't leave somebody on an island for too long, and you force people other than Middleton to knock down shots. You force Connaughton, Drew Holiday, all those guys to be knockdown shooters. Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis, and if they're missing, you win the possession basically. That's how I'd imagine they would do this if Giannis was fully healthy. At least to start, I think you would see Jay Crowder on him. But I do like the Ayton matchup.
Yeah,
I think you'd worry though about Ayton getting in foul trouble, but at this point, he's your dog. You got to ride. You got to ride with him. So,
and even just thinking about it with what you just said, the Suns do have a very balanced lineup, and I don't know if this is one way to look at it, because I mean, if Chris Paul is in his absolute prime, you'd maybe say they have the best player, but I think if healthy, the Bucks got the best guy, right? And then they got 2 other like all-star-ish talents with Middleton and Drew Holiday. Versus the Suns, you got a Chris Paul that's a lot older. He's still an all-star. You got Devin Booker, who's a young all-star, and then Ayton, who maybe is on the cusp. But I think they got a lot of balance overall that makes them just a nice team. They got some young guys off the bench that can give you something. They got, Jay Crowder. They got these veteran guys, the Jay Crowders of the world on the team that are tough. And then Mikal Bridges as well that can play in the perimeter and hit threes and play good defense. So I don't know. I like their balance. So
I was just
think
going
it's
to say,
pretty close.
you brought up my next question is who has the better bench
Yeah.
out of these two teams? For me personally, I think it's the Suns, but you guys can disagree with me and probably will. But I think the Suns have a very deep and talented bench.
I think not having DiVincenzo changes the bench unit for the Bucks, because the Bucks bench unit is pretty tough. I mean, in the playoffs,
Bobby Portis was really good all season, and
Bobby Portis is good all season.
Yeah.
Been great in the playoffs. Bryn Forbes, the first 2 rounds, shot like he was Steve Kerr in his prime. PJ Tucker, I mean, they've kind of moved him in and out of the starting lineup a bit, but they got a pretty decent bench. It's a tough one, man. I would say the Suns bench is a little more versatile, I think, but it's pretty even on the bench front to me.
Yeah. Now here's another weird question. I know we wouldn't have anticipated that these are the 2 teams in the finals. Maybe at the beginning of the season, or even at the beginning of the playoffs. I don't think either one was necessarily favored. Would you say we're going to get the best team to win the championship this year?
I'm not mad at it, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I said during that Nets Bucks series, whoever wins this series is winning it all.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Suns. Okay, how about this? If the Jazz were in the finals, would you say the same thing?
Yeah, probably. like I don't know.
Because it's not the Lakers or Clippers, basically, or what?
I mean,
because I only thing I'm saying is the Jazz and the Suns were coast to coast the best two teams in the West.
No, that's true.
Coast to
And
coast.
that's fair.
Like, they were always 1 and 2 or top 3 the whole time.
I think what's true, and this is true of the Jazz, is true of the Suns, and it's true of the Bucks, is that you don't believe it until you see it necessarily.
Absolutely.
Even the Clippers, you didn't necessarily believe it until you saw it.
But
right?
that's the one thing that's whack about sports and sports coverage in general is, oh, he can't do it, he can't do it, he can't do it, he can't do it.
Until he's done it. And then,
I need to see him do it. Oh, yeah, and guess what happens? And then he does it, and then it goes to, oh, who's the next guy we can say this about? Like, it just – it's never ending.
And it's also this other funny thing, which is like this hindsight thing kicks in immediately, which is like, oh, yeah, everybody always knew he was the best, right?
Right.
So, like, you just doubted him for all these years. And it happened with LeBron. That's true. Like, we doubted him, like, oh, he's never going to win a ring. He's not good enough, not clutch enough. Then he wins a whole bunch, and it's like –
and then it moves to Durant. And then once Durant does it, it moves to this guy. It's never ending.
That's true.
I'm going to bring a little NFL into this argument here and say, like, well, I can't remember what year it was, but when the Giants won the Super Bowl as like a wild card team, like they finished the season 8-8, and then Eli Manning just completely blows up and just runs through the NFL playoffs, and they end up winning the Super Bowl. Like when they had a regular season, when they were 500 the regular season. You don't necessarily have that with these two teams. I mean, the Bucks are the 3 seed. Phoenix is the 2 seed. I mean, Milwaukee had been competing. I'm pretty sure, looking at here, they were real close to. Yeah, they were only 2 games behind Brooklyn, 3 games behind Philly in the East. So it's not like you have a team that just kind of came out of nowhere and got hot in the playoffs. I mean, Milwaukee, same with Phoenix. They were 1 game behind the Jazz for the top seed in the West. So potentially, you're getting.
But you really never have that. Maybe 2 or 3 times in the history of the NBA, you have that. A team like the Knicks is an 8 seed going to the finals, or even the Heat last year is like a 5 seed. I mean, they had some expectations, but not finals aspirations, But I think it's fair. I mean, the Suns went from being a trash organization for like almost a decade, like 7 or 8 years, and you don't go to the playoffs all that time, and now you're just in the finals. I don't think in our wildest, even if you knew they were going to be good, I don't think we knew they were going to be this good.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's a good point.
Were they aided by teams having injuries? Sure. Like right now, if we had guns to our head, if the Lakers are fully healthy, LeBron's 100%, Anthony Davis is 100%, do we think the Lakers might have won that series? Possibly, probably they probably win that. But the Suns are here, man. Like, it is what it is. Yeah. And I think they deserve to be the favorite right now. But I think don't sleep on the Bucks, man, because as dumb as they are sometimes, like, defensively, they're different, man. Like, when they get going defensively, it's tough to score on them boys.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Any other thoughts? NBA Finals? Do we got Steele? This is your favorite part of the show.
Predictions?
Making predictions.
I don't have any predictions. Just like things that I do think the Drew Holiday on Chris Paul matchup is huge. I think this has as tough as Pat Beverly is sometimes. He is more annoying than skilled sometimes defensively. Drew Holiday, by all players in the league, gets the most respect as a perimeter defender. I watched TJ McConnell and JJ Redick's podcast a couple weeks ago, and he said Drew Holiday is the only defender in the league that literally makes him feel like he's in junior high basketball. Like, he will just take the ball from you, and you can't do anything about it. So I think that's a huge matchup. Obviously, Giannis's health is huge. If he can't go till maybe game 3 or 4, this could be over quick. And then I think the Bucks' willingness to go a touch smaller, like take a page out of what the Clippers did. Don't stick to your guns if it's not working. Start with what got you there. But if you need to make adjustments, they need to make adjustments because Chris Paul will eat you alive.
And it'll be interesting to see what that adjustment is, because if you go drop because you want to play big, I think he's going to eat you up. If you hard hedge or something like that, I don't know if that's really an answer either. The only other option is to switch, and you can't do that with Brook Lopez out there because he'll just hunt.
Right.
He'll just hunt that matchup, and Booker will too. So I don't know, but they haven't really pulled Brook Lopez off the court like that at all.
Which he's very important to what they do. I mean, offensively and defensively. So as long as you can get away with, as long as he can step up and not keep dropping back, you know, Chris Paul is not really at this stage in his career where he does the blow by as much.
Right.
I mean, he'll get you sometimes, but you'd rather step up on him and make him try to get by you than keep dropping back and just let him.
And I agree with that. He's not going to blow by everybody anymore, but Brook Lopez, I think, would be one.
Absolutely.
He'd still eat up. And not only that, but if Booker can get him in pick and roll too, right? So
yes,
or campaign off the bench is even another one. Like I think they're gonna test that out heavily, and we're gonna see how the Bucks figure it out.
I'm anxious to see too what the extent of Giannis's injury too, because I heard somebody was telling me the other day that it wasn't one of you guys, surprisingly enough, but that they were resting him game 6, but he was going to be ready to play in game 7 if they needed him. So is this a thing too where they're just trying to buy him as much time as possible? So like, okay, we're gonna sit you Tuesday so we can have you ready to go game 2 Thursday if we need you, or if we take game 1. We'll rest you again another game, until we need you type of deal, just to try to get him back to 100%.
It's clearly bad because there's you got 3 or 4 months to rest. This is clearly bad if he's not playing in the NBA Finals.
And I'd add to that is sometimes these guys try to go out there just to play for the sake of playing because and for maybe good reasons, maybe bad reasons, we question the heart of players that don't play through injuries in these big games. But the truth is, do they always help you that much? James Harden was not good. Even though he came back and played. Trae Young was not very good in game 6, even though he came back and played. If you're getting, a Giannis that can't really give you even half of what he normally gives you.
But is 50 or 60% of Giannis better than the alternative?
Well, there's 2 different ways to play 50%. You can play half-ass on both ends, or you can pick a side of the ball. I mean, that's what I've learned as I've gotten older playing pickup.
I guess with Giannis is if he doesn't have the burst, like Kevin Durant, if he's hobbling a little bit, he's still gonna get to a spot and hit a
Just
jumper.
rise up on him. Yeah.
It just is what it is. If Dirk, had a twisted ankle, he's gonna get to a spot, fade away, and you just can't stop it.
Yeah.
Giannis needs that athleticism to be Giannis.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
if he can't not that he always gets by you, he usually just runs you over. But if he can't even get to the spot where he can accelerate and run you over to get to the rim,
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, he's really not giving you anything on offense.
And and then if he loses some of that quick spring action on defense too, I mean, I don't know. Like I feel like his game, he might need to be at a higher percentage because even Harden, right? Harden can play half-ass, but he's still a threat to shoot a three. He can still,
But-
.
I wonder though if in the Hawks series in particular, there were games before Giannis got hurt, obviously, where let's say there's 14 seconds on the shot clock, they get a switch, Herder has the ball, Giannis is on him, and he would just wave somebody over to get it because they don't, and then Trey would get the ball with Giannis on him, and he wouldn't want to do anything because he has that prowess on defense as somebody you don't test. Could he maybe go out there and not 100% and still kind of command that respect to where you
Yeah.
don't almost want to try him until you can. But I watched in that Hawks series, they did not want to test him a lot of those possessions.
Yeah. No, it's true. We'll see.
All right. I'm excited because
They're stupid.
the return of the lightning round, we're going to have a NBA Finals edition. First guy to call out the correct answer wins it. Okay, first question. And this isn't about this year's. It's about any
Okay.
NBA Finals ever. All right. Which NBA player was the first to win 2 NBA Finals MVP awards? I can give you choices if you need them.
Bill Russell.
No.
Oh, George Mikan.
Nope.
There was no NBA Finals awards back then?
Apparently not,
Oh, okay.
because that would have been my
Kareem.
guesses. Nope.
Magic Johnson.
Nope.
Having a rough time.
I'm going to be honest. I don't know if you'll get
When
this
did
one.
the
That's-
NBA Finals MVP award or whatever it's called come out? That's a good hint.
and that's not given in this description here. I'm just going by my phone.
Dexter
You guys say-
Pittman.
Willis Reed is the correct answer. He won it in 70 and 73. So I'm guessing somewhere around 70 and 73 they started.
There's
giving
no way it
I don't know.
existed during Bill Russell's 9 or 11 championships in 13 years because there's no way he didn't win multiple.
I
When
was
I first-
born in 1987.
Yeah. When I first read this question too, my mind went to Russell and no. So they must not have given
that
him
question's
that.
misleading. It's
All
bullshit.
right.
Daquan Cook.
All right. Who won the Finals MVP award in 2008?
Tony Parker.
Kevin Garnett.
Oh wait, 2008. I'm sorry, I was 7.
Yeah. Yeah, you're close, Steele.
Paul Pierce.
Paul Pierce won it, yeah.
I got the wrong year in my head.
All right. here we-
Anything's possible.
This question does kind of have something to do with this. The Milwaukee Bucks went to their first finals in franchise history in 70-71. They skunked the Baltimore Bullets 4-0. Who was the MVP of the series?
Kareem Cook.
Wrong.
Kareem.
Lou Alcindor.
Yeah.
No, I think it was Kareem.
I think he was
I
Kareem.
think
It was
that
Kareem. It was Kareem.
Okay, but here's the hard part of this question. What did he average per game, points and rebounds?
I'm gonna guess 34 and 17.
17 rebounds per game.
Oh.
That you got that one right. Points per game though.
9,000 points.
Yeah. 26.
Okay.
Here's a little fun.
26. You're a bum.
26.6 points and 17 rebounds per game. Here's something I didn't know. Here's a little FF for you. FF is fun fact if you didn't know. But Julius Erving was actually selected by the Bucks that following season, 72. But he ended up opting for the
He
ABA.
chose the ABA over playing with Kareem.
So could you imagine that dynasty?
He was trying to get his shots, dog.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to get any with Kareem.
He's like, this guy's just gonna be shooting skyhooks. I ain't got time for
You
that.
know?
That's pretty funny. All right. What team? This one's, you both know this one. Just see who can get it first. What team won the NBA final in the 94-95 season?
Houston Rockets.
Houston Rockets. There you go. Can any of
Vernon
you
Maxwell for life.
can any of you remember who won the MVP of that finals?
Hakeem.
Hakeem.
Kenny
Yep.
Smith. Oh, wait.
And also, Vernon Maxwell wasn't on the 95 team. They had Clyde Drexler that year.
All right,
Oh,
we'll go-
93, 94.
That was your dad, Vernon, yeah.
Okay, that's right. Yeah.
One second. I'm trying to find a shorter one. Here you go. Which NBA player was the first winner of the NBA Finals MVP despite being on the losing team?
Oh, it was Jerry West. That's when the NBA Finals MVP was. So that makes more sense. That's why Bill Russell didn't have any.
Yeah.
He didn't come out till the end of tail end of his career.
And here it is. It was 1969,
That makes
which
sense.
so in 70 Willis Reed would have won it. But yeah, it was Jerry West. And then
Why do you think he won it even though they didn't win the series? That's kind of an interesting one because it's the only time it's ever happened. It was the first Finals MVP award.
White.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, he also played wonderful, but come on.
He played the game the right way.
He did. He did.
All the hustle.
all
He's
right.
scrappy.
Who was the? This will be the last one. Another easy one. First one who can get it. Who was the first team to win 3 consecutive NBA titles?
Cool. Actually,
Three
The
consecutive.
Monstars.
Yeah. When Ben showed up here tonight, that was Space Jam. I had Space
Yes.
Jam on. I was trying to play it for my daughter. And funny thing is, she could care less about the cartoons and all that, but as soon as they started playing the game, she got all excited about basketball. So I
the
think I'm
answer
doing
Boston or Minneapolis Lakers?
Lakers. Yep.
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis Lakers from 51-52 to 53-54.
But listen, after it comes out, we're going to debate which Space Jam's better, and it's already the 96.
I was gonna say Michael. Yeah. Well, did you see? Real quick, did you see the meme that goes like even the Looney Tunes know who's better? And there's a little clip of Michael in the huddle, and like all the Looney Tunes are like leaned in and all pumped up, and then like LeBron's in the huddle, and like all the Looney Tunes are just kind of sitting back and like they look like bored and not into it. So
I think it's funny that I heard a rumor that Jordan was going to have a cameo in the new Space Jam. And I was like, damn, all the people that were already hating on this were like, oh, Michael's is like, oh, wait, Michael's going to be in this one? Oh, my gosh, hold on. I actually got to see it now. I got to cape up for it. Like, oh, my God.
Well, my wife goes when we were watching it. She goes, "We'll have to watch the new one just so we compare and see which one's better." And I had the same thought you did. Yeah,
See, here's where it went wrong for LeBron this year. If he goes and wins the championship, and then the new Space Jam comes out, now all the marketing of him as the GOAT kind of makes sense. He blew it,
Right.
man.
Yeah.
He blew it.
Let's get some final thoughts here before we wrap this up. Steele, we'll start with you.
Let's see. NBA Finals is here. We're going to get a new winner, no matter what. One coach is going to be super vindicated, whether it's Monty Williams, the ultimate, like, nice guy. Everybody loves him. Like, that would just be the cherry on top to already great career for him. And then Coach Bud, Budenholzer has been so disrespected and on the hot seat, kind of. If he gets a ring, I mean, he kind of locks up his job for a while. I think that's another interesting fact we kind of didn't get into, just the coaching thing. And then I just want to see a clean, injury-free finals, may the best team win. And then a little down the road, just in case we don't get back to you in the next week or so, is I can't wait for Team USA, man. This is like I love NBA, I love college ball, but like, man, there's something about like Team USA and us just stomping out other countries. Like, I don't know,
Represent
man.
your country,
Us just
man.
beating under like, overwhelmed little
Some
countries
country
to
of 2
death.
million
like,
people, we just hammer
right?
this shit out.
Like,
We'll have to
that's what we do, man. Come on.
we'll have to try to do a dream team episode or something coming up about this to preview this a little bit. Ben, your final thoughts?
I'm excited about the finals because I think not just for coaches, but much like we talked about on last week's episode, somebody's legacy is going to get a huge boost, I think,
Mhm.
whether it's Chris Paul or really Giannis, because Giannis has a chance, if he has multiple championships to his name by the time his career is over, to be among, one of the greatest players too. So we'll see.
Stay right there, though. I like that. Stay right there, though, real
Yeah.
quick. Let's say Giannis misses the first 3 games,
Mhm.
and the Bucks are up 2-1, and they end up winning in 6 games, but he only played half of it. Does that still, no matter what, just get etched on to him, even though he won't be Finals MVP?
Maybe, and it depends on what he does afterwards. And the reason I say that is
It might be one of those do it again, show
Yeah.
me again things.
yes, and also another complication can happen where say the Suns win, but Chris Paul plays kind of mediocre for him. Does it do
Right, and
much
that's-
for him either? And both of those are possible. But I say it matters for the Giannis one you presented. It only hurts him if they don't win any more championships, because Kobe gets credited for 5 championships, even though
When the
he was
first
the second best player on the first 3.
Yeah.
If you were there,
Mhm.
okay.
Absolutely.
But it
Absolutely.
doesn't matter. He's always 5 championships. He's one of the greatest of all time. It's okay, he was the second best player in the first 3.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And especially in the first one, majorly,
yeah.
By the third one, he was at least on a level with
Right.
Shaq, but it was still Shaq's team. But the Chris Paul thing is interesting to me too, because I don't. It's almost like, to me, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning played like dog crap the year they won.
Well,
But
Denver
you-
certainly. He was terrible with them.
Yeah.
But they won, and
Yeah.
you don't remember that. He just gets that ring forever. I think Chris
Mhm.
Paul, even if he plays about average or a little
That's
below
true.
his average, and they win, he's done it so well all the times they've
Yeah,
lost
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
he's got enough build up that this is your
Actually,
this is
that's
your
fair,
ring, I
because
think.
that goes back to your analogy that you used before, that is Chris Paul's Peyton Manning, because Peyton Manning was the best regular season quarterback I've ever seen, right?
Mhm.
But he doesn't. But because Brady had all the championships, Brady's the better historical quarterback.
And let's
But
be
yes.
honest, he was bad in a lot of those playoff games they lost. It wasn't just the defense for the Colts;
That's true.
he was bad.
That's true.
So,
But it does help him historically that he has at least 2, right?
Yeah.
Like Peyton Manning, even though he played crap on one of the Denver ones. So that's true.
A lot of NFL comparisons and this is in the basketball podcast. But hey, we appreciate all the love that we're getting. We appreciate all the comments. So thanks for all those doing that. Continue to like us, follow us, subscribe to us, all that. And hey, NBA Finals are upon us. Hey, this has been another episode of the Give and Go Basketball Podcast. Tune in next time.
I'm Ben Sperry, and this was the Give and Go Basketball Podcast.